If you think you've seen every SpongeBob episode, you're wrong. I'm not talking about some random fan animation on YouTube, or one of those fake titles people make up to scare kids online. What I'm about to tell you, what I've seen, is something different. Something that was never supposed to reach anyone outside of a locked editing bay at Nickelodeon Studios. This isn't lost media. This is buried media, and even saying that much feels dangerous. See, SpongeBob was my comfort show growing up. No matter how bad my day got, there was always something about that dumb sponge's laugh, that sunny underwater world that made things feel okay again. We all have shows like that, warm, harmless little bubbles of childhood nostalgia. But what if I told you there's an episode that doesn't belong in that bubble? An episode that doesn't feel like SpongeBob at all? The kind of thing that claws at your memory after you've seen it, like it's waiting for the right time to surface again. I used to laugh at the creepypastas too, the so-called lost episodes, the urban legends about animators sneaking in disturbing frames, hidden jokes only adults would catch. It was all just internet campfire stories, right? Until the day I found the file. But before I get there, you need to understand something. I've spoken to other people, quietly, anonymously, and they all say the same thing. Nobody who worked on it will acknowledge it. In fact, they'll cut you off if you even bring it up. One person who claimed they had been an intern at the studio told me bluntly, "We don't talk about that tape, ever," and then they blocked me. So, if I sound paranoid, it's because I've seen what happens when someone digs too deep. Accounts vanish. Emails bounce back. People stop replying, or worse, say things they shouldn't know about you. Like the show itself. Knows, I'm giving you this warning now. Don't go looking for it. Don't start digging through shady forums or hard drives you find at garage sales. Because if you find it, it won't just feel like an episode you weren't meant to see. It'll feel like something that wasn't meant to exist at all. And yet, I did. It all started when I stumbled across a mislabeled file buried in an old hard drive. SpongeBob wasn't just a cartoon to me, it was a part of growing up. I can still remember sitting cross-legged on the carpet, Saturday mornings, cereal bowl in hand, humming along to that ridiculous theme song. Are you ready, kids? Yes. Always yes. I think that's why the show stuck with me long after I probably should have grown out of it. Even in college, I'd throw on an episode when I couldn't sleep. It was comfort food for the brain. Bright colors, dumb jokes, a world where the worst thing that could happen was Squidward being annoyed. So yeah, I'll admit it. I was that guy. The one quoting SpongeBob memes in group chats long after they stopped being funny. My roommate Alex used to roast me constantly. "Dude," he said once, catching me watching the Bubble Bowl episode for the 50th time, "you're way too into cartoons. You know that, right?" I shrugged, spoon in my mouth. Better than doom-scrolling the news, and he had no comeback for that. That's the thing about nostalgia, it makes you feel safe. Like nothing bad can touch those memories. Which is probably why I didn't think twice when I stumbled into that old animation forum late one night. Most of the threads were harmless. People swapping storyboards, old sketches, behind-the-scenes trivia. Harmless fun, but there was one thread that didn't fit. No replies, no title, just a single post with a link. At first I thought it was spam. The account had no profile pic, no bio, nothing but the name Archivist129. And the file? It was a zipped folder with a handful of images, some random notes in broken English, and one video file. The video's name was what caught me. Most SpongeBob episodes have simple titles. Pizza Delivery, Rock Bottom, SB129. This one looked like a variation on that last one, SB129 Autumn Cut. I almost didn't click it. Honestly, I hovered over the download for a good minute, telling myself it was probably just another troll, some dumb fan edit with cursed images spliced in. But something about it, it didn't feel like bait. It felt wrong. Like someone had left it there on purpose. Alex wandered into the room while I was staring at the screen. "What's with the face? You finally find SpongeBob's secret porn folder or something?" "Shut up," I muttered, but I laughed too. That was our dynamic. Him making cracks, me taking the bait. Still, even after he left, the joke lingered. Because the truth is, I didn't want to open it. I wanted to close the laptop, forget it existed, and just go back to rewatching the goofy episodes I knew by heart. But curiosity, yeah, curiosity always wins. And here's the part that keeps me up at night. If I hadn't clicked that file, I'd probably still be sleeping just fine. The download finished in seconds. My screen flickered once as if the system itself hesitated, and then the folder opened. Inside was a single corrupted thumbnail. A still frame too dark to make out, but the title confirmed it was the video. SB-129 Autumn Cut. That was the moment the fun nostalgia started to sour. When I opened the file, it looked normal at first. Just the standard title card, blue bubbles, ukulele strumming, the words SB-129 in that familiar yellow font. For a second, I almost laughed at myself. All that tension over nothing. Then the theme song started. You know how every episode begins with that upbeat, shouty pirate voice? Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? Except this time the voice was flat, monotone, like the actor had read the line in one take without even trying. The background music limped along too, as if the instruments were half a beat behind each other. I told myself it was file corruption. An old rip, maybe. Sound degradation happens. Still, I felt my stomach twist. The colors were next. Bikini Bottom is supposed to be bright, candy-colored, saturated to the point of absurdity. But in this video, everything looked drained, muted. The ocean background was a dull gray-blue, and SpongeBob's famous yellow was closer to beige. His eyes looked sunken, rimmed with faint shadows. I messaged Alex, who was in his room, and told him to check it out. He padded back in, yawning, and flopped onto my bed. All right, what cursed cartoon did you drag me into? Just watch, I muttered. At first, it played like a regular episode. SpongeBob woke up in his bed, his alarm blaring. He sat up with that huge grin. But the grin lingered too long. His pupils locked on the camera, unblinking as if he knew we were there. The shot held for almost a full 10 seconds. Dude, Alex said, shifting uncomfortably. This is creepy already. Are you sure this is Nickelodeon? I laughed, but it came out shaky. Yeah, probably just some weird fan cut. But then SpongeBob spoke. His voice was off, not dramatically, just enough to sound tired. Like Tom Kenny had been forced to record the lines at gunpoint. Good morning, world, he said, but the intonation was flat. No bounce. The background music was there, but slower. Notes stretched, dragging behind the animation, like an old cassette warping. I leaned forward, staring at the screen. My rational brain kept whispering excuses, corrupt encoding, compression artifacts, whatever. But my chest tightened all the same. It got worse when SpongeBob walked outside. Normally, there's sound design, bubbles, the distant whoosh of water. Here, it was silent. Just his heavy, wet footsteps against the sand. And then he laughed. Not the laugh. Not the ridiculous, high-pitched machine gun cackle we all know. This was something else. Something broken. It bubbled up slow, ragged, as if he were choking on water. It was wet. And it didn't stop when the scene cut. It bled into the next shot, dragging behind him like an echo. Alex sat up straighter. Okay, that's not right. That's not right at all. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because the camera had zoomed in on SpongeBob's face again, and he wasn't smiling anymore. He was just staring. His eyes too wide, unblinking, like he was looking straight through the screen. I tried to pause the file. Nothing happened. The bar at the bottom didn't even show up. And then, just like that, the frame cut to black. The screen came back. But something was wrong. Something more than before. Bikini Bottom was empty. Not just nobody in the frame, empty, abandoned. The streets were gray, the sand darker, almost ash-colored. Buildings leaned at strange angles, their outlines sharper than usual, like the animators had redrawn them with jagged, angry strokes. No background fish swam by, No traffic, no chatter, no goofy slapstick. Just SpongeBob walking down the middle of the street, alone. The soundtrack didn't help. The usual cheerful xylophones were gone. Instead, there was a faint hiss like tape static. Every few seconds, I swore I could hear something buried underneath, music, but warped. Slow notes climbing in reverse, like an old record being spun the wrong way. SpongeBob's footsteps echoed too loudly, each squelch like soggy rubber shoes pressed into a wet floor. He looked around, nervous, but he never spoke. His mouth opened once, but no words came out. Only that broken, wet laugh again, softer this time, as if he was trying to smother it. Alex leaned forward. Why is it so quiet? There's never silence in this show. I swallowed hard. Just wait. The first stop was the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob pushed the door open slowly. No cheery bell jingle, just the creak of the hinges. Inside, the restaurant was gutted. Tables overturned, fryers blackened. The camera panned across the dining room, and for a split second I thought I saw shapes in the booths. People, or fish, sitting there, but blurred, like the animation had tried to erase them. Then the shot cut to SpongeBob behind the register. He was just standing there, breathing heavy, his chest rising and falling, ragged, while that faint static grew louder. The frame glitched once, twice, and suddenly he wasn't in the Krusty Krab anymore. He was outside. Patrick was lying on the ground. Not cartoon sleeping, not snoring, not drooling. Just lying there motionless, his eyes open, too open. His mouth hung slack, his skin a strange grayish pink like the color had been drained out of him. SpongeBob crouched down beside him. He put a hand on Patrick's shoulder, shook him gently. Patrick's body jostled like a doll. That's when the audio shifted. SpongeBob whispered something. His voice was warped, distorted, like two recordings layered on top of each other. I couldn't make out the words, but Alex grabbed my arm and whispered, "Did he just say wake up?" Before I could answer, the scene cut again. Now SpongeBob stood in front of Squidward's house. The door was ajar, creaking slowly on its hinges. The windows were pitch black, and underneath the reversed music I heard it. Sobbing. Not cartoon crying, the exaggerated wah-wah of Squidward's clarinet-fueled breakdowns. This was human. Low, guttural, broken sobbing that rose and fell in gasps. I paused the file, but the sobbing didn't stop. Alex and I stared at each other, waiting for it to fade. It didn't. It just kept going, raw and too real. Like someone was in the room with us, crying through a wall. "Unpause it," Alex whispered. My hands shook, but I hit play. The camera zoomed slowly inside Squidward's living room. The walls were bare, furniture missing. Just a chair in the center, facing away from the camera. The sobbing grew louder, synced with the movement of his shoulders. Squidward sat slumped in the chair, head in his hands. His normally cartoonish frame looked wrong, longer, the lines on his face deeper, like he'd aged 20 years. SpongeBob stepped forward. The camera panned around. Squidward raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot. The whites were gray. His mouth twitched. For a second, I thought he was going to cry again. Instead, he looked straight at me. Not SpongeBob. Not Alex. Me, and then Squidward spoke. At first, I thought it was just clever animation. Some edgy intern's idea of a horror prank. But then Squidward leaned forward, filling the frame until his face took up the entire screen. His pupils stretched, bleeding into the whites of his eyes until they looked like deep wells. And when he spoke, it wasn't the usual nasally moan I'd grown up laughing at. It was quiet. Too quiet. "Why are you here?" he whispered. Alex laughed nervously. "Okay, no way. This has to be edited. Like fan edit edited." But then Squidward said something else. "My name. My real name. Not my screen handle. Not the nickname Alex uses. The full thing. Spoken slowly, syllables dragged out, like he was savoring the way it tasted." I froze. The static in the background shifted. It wasn't random anymore, it was layered. Beneath the hiss, I could swear I heard faint voices. Human voices, mutters, fragments of words, things too soft to catch. They overlapped like 100 people whispering at once, trying to break through the static. Squidward's face stayed locked on mine. "They're listening too," he said. My stomach dropped. The animation glitched, skipping frames, and for a moment the screen flickered to something else, not Bikini Bottom. Not a cartoon. It was a hallway, grainy, black and white, like from a security camera. I saw fluorescent lights, peeling wallpaper, and at the end of the hall, a door just barely ajar. The feed buzzed with static, then snapped back to Squidward. I told myself it was corruption, just random data spliced in. But then another cut happened. This time it was fast, less than a second, but I saw it clearly. A photo of me, not a cartoon version, me, sitting at my desk, hunched over my laptop, the same laptop I was watching the episode on. Alex swore under his breath. Dude, that's how I didn't let him finish. I scrubbed the file back, trying to pause on the frame. Every time I tried, the video skipped forward, as if it didn't want me to stop. Squidward tilted his head. His mouth opened in a slow, jagged grin. "Do you remember?" he asked. I shook my head, whispering without meaning to. "Remember what?" He leaned closer until his face distorted into a mess of pixels. His mouth didn't move this time, but the voices in the static shifted, sinking together into one sentence. They whispered a name. Not my name. Not Alex's. Her name, the one I hadn't said aloud in years. The one I'd buried, shoved into the dark corners of my life where I thought no one could reach. The secret that should have stayed dead. Alex turned to me, confused. "Who the hell is that?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat locked up. On screen, Squidward chuckled. It wasn't his laugh. It wasn't anyone's laugh. It sounded wet, bubbling like something trapped underwater. "I told you," he hissed, voice warping into static. "They're listening." The background shifted again. This time, instead of Bikini Bottom, I saw a series of spliced frames, each lasting just a heartbeat. A hospital room, a row of lockers, a newspaper clipping blurred at the edges, faces I half recognized, each one flickering away before I could focus, and then another picture of me, closer this time. My face pale, eyes wide, like the photo had been taken only seconds ago. Alex slammed his hand against the table. "Shut it off, man, shut it off." I tried, God, I tried. I clicked pause, escape, closed the window. Nothing worked. The episode kept playing, Squidward's voice now rising into a shriek that bent the audio, clipping so hard it made the speakers rattle. And then he whispered again. "My secret." This time not as a question, but as a statement, as if he was reminding me, as if he owned it. My chest went cold. My skin prickled like I was being watched, not by Alex, not by Squidward, but by whatever was inside the file itself. The video cut to black. Silence. For a second, I thought it was over. I even exhaled, relief flooding in. And then from the speakers, soft and steady, came that sobbing again. The same human sobbing from before, louder now. Right behind me, I didn't dare look. I slammed my laptop shut, but the audio kept playing. 1 second, Alex was there. Right beside me, pale as I'd ever seen him, whispering for me to shut the thing down. And then he wasn't. I don't mean he walked out, or that I blinked and lost track of him. His chair was empty, like he'd never been there at all. The indentation his body had left in the cushion was gone. His half-finished soda gone. Even the faint smell of his cologne that usually lingered when he left the room was nothing. I thought maybe he'd stormed out in anger or fear. My first instinct was to grab my phone and call him. I pulled up his contact, thumb shaking, hit the call button. Static. Not a dropped call, not voicemail. Just a hiss, sharp and loud, like the sound on the episode itself had bled into the line. I hung up and tried again. Same thing. I scrolled through my photo gallery, desperate for proof, something to remind me Alex was real. but every shot we'd taken together over the last 3 years had changed. His arm around my shoulder at the Halloween party, gone. A vacation selfie where we'd both been squinting against the sun. Just me now, awkwardly cropped as though I'd posed against empty space. Even the photo I knew had been my phone's lock screen, both of us grinning like idiots at a baseball game, was rewritten. Just me alone in the stands, smiling at nothing. I checked our messages. The thread was there, but the bubbles were all one-sided. Mine. Every dumb meme, every midnight rant, every conversation now looked like I'd been talking to myself. I whispered his name, barely audible. Nothing answered me. Not even an echo. My laptop screen flickered back on. The episode hadn't stopped. It hadn't paused when I'd slammed the lid shut earlier. It was still running. Still pulling me along whether I wanted it or not. SpongeBob was sitting at the table in the Krusty Krab. Alone. Across from him was a chair. An empty chair. My throat went dry. Because that chair, it looked exactly like the one Alex had been sitting in just minutes ago. Same worn fabric, same placement, same angle, as if the cartoon was mirroring my room. SpongeBob's eyes drifted slowly toward the empty chair. He didn't smile. He didn't laugh. He just stared at it, his face sagging in a way no animator at Nickelodeon had ever drawn him before. I was the only one who remembered him. I said it out loud without meaning to. The words fell heavy into the silence of my apartment, and I swear I heard something in the speakers repeat it back, distorted, delayed, but unmistakably my own voice. I pushed back from the desk. My legs trembled so badly I nearly tripped over the chair. My heart was hammering, not just from fear, but from the crushing, suffocating loneliness that had swallowed the room. A minute ago I wasn't alone. Now it felt like I always had been. And then SpongeBob turned his head. Slowly, stiffly, like his body was resisting the motion. His pupils locked onto the camera, onto me. The speakers crackled, the static hissing like a held breath. And then a voice, not his, not Squidward's, not Alex's, emerged from the distortion. And then the video spoke again. Prove you deserve to stay. The file didn't even pretend to be an episode anymore. When the screen flickered back on, SpongeBob was gone. The Krusty Krab was gone. All that remained was a pulsing black screen. Then my desktop appeared, my actual desktop. My wallpaper, my folders, my icons. It was like the episode had tunneled through my system and now wore my computer like a mask. One by one, windows opened themselves. My email, my private cloud backups, files I'd labeled archive or do not open, just to bury them deeper. Things I hadn't thought about in years. I tried to close them. My mouse wouldn't move. My keyboard was dead. The black screen pulsed again, and then a string of text appeared, not in a window, but across my entire monitor, as if it were branded into the pixels themselves. Keep watching or it comes out. I blinked. What comes out? I whispered, even though I knew it could hear me. The speakers hissed. A voice emerged, not SpongeBob, not Squidward, but a wet, layered whisper. My name, my real name, the one I'd hidden, the one no one living should know. You know, it hissed. The thing you buried. The thing you never wanted anyone to see. I felt my stomach drop. On screen, a folder popped open by itself. Inside were scans of old letters, photos I'd deleted, messages I thought were gone forever. Things I'd locked away not just from the world but from myself. Then the first command appeared, delete your files. Another line followed slower, like it was thinking all of them. I shook my head. No, the pulse of the screen quickened. My lights flickered. The static from the speakers sharpened into a shriek for 1 second, loud enough to make me clap my hands over my ears. When I looked back at the monitor, my desktop background had changed. It was an image from my childhood, a school photo, but the face wasn't mine. It was close, though. Same shirt, same hair, but the eyes were hollowed black. Stop, I said, my voice cracking. This isn't real. The episode laughed. Not SpongeBob's laugh, something broken, something wet. Another command, destroy your mementos. Below it, an image of my bedroom appeared, captured from my webcam. It zoomed in on the small wooden box on my shelf, the one with the only photo of my father, the one thing I'd never digitized. I turned to look at the shelf. The box was already vibrating just slightly, as if caught in a draft that didn't exist. If you think you're scaring me, I started, but the speakers cut me off with a whisper. We're not scaring you. We're rewriting you. On screen, my childhood memories began to replay in video form. Birthdays, playgrounds, family dinners. But the details were wrong. My mother's smile was missing teeth she never lost. My friends' faces flickered into strangers. My own voice was a different pitch. It was like watching a life I'd never lived but had somehow been forced to remember. I reached for the power button. Nothing happened. I yanked the plug from the outlet. The monitor stayed on. Another command, burn the photo, and beneath it, my own handwriting appeared, words I'd written years ago in a notebook I'd burned, now displayed like an accusation. I'll never let anyone find out. My breath hitched. FOMO, they call it. Fear of missing out. But this was something else. Fear of being consumed. Fear of watching yourself become a stranger. I won't, I whispered. You can't make me. The black screen pulsed faster like a heartbeat going frantic. My lights flickered out completely. The sound rose again, that wet, broken laugh, and the text shifted. Each refusal makes it real. I stumbled backward. My reflection in the dark monitor didn't move the same way I did anymore. Its lips twitched into a smile while mine stayed pressed together. It wasn't just a cartoon anymore, I thought. It was rewriting me. I turned to grab my phone, but it was already glowing with the same pulsing text. My TV flickered to life, displaying the same commands. Even the digital clock on my microwave was spelling words now. Obey. Then, all at once, everything stopped. The screen went black. The static cut off. I stood frozen, heart hammering. Then the monitor flickered. And I wasn't in my room anymore. At first, I thought I'd passed out. But when my eyes opened, the glow around me wasn't from my desk lamp. It was bright, cartoon bright, the kind of saturated yellow and neon blue that made SpongeBob's world feel safe. Silly, eternal. Only now it felt wrong. The sky above me was that familiar painted backdrop, but the clouds rippled like wet paper. The sand beneath my feet wasn't grains, it was static, tiny crawling pixels that shifted and hissed when I moved. And then the sound hit me. It wasn't silence. It wasn't ocean waves. It was like being deep underwater, every noise stretched and warped, voices echoing faintly in a distorted loop. Some were SpongeBob's laugh, some were sobs, some were whispers that sounded like my own. I staggered forward. Jellyfish fields, the place I'd seen 1,000 times in reruns, but the jellyfish were frozen mid-air, like broken gifts. Wings flapping once every few seconds before twitching back to stillness. And standing just beyond them was SpongeBob. At least that's what it looked like at first. The yellow was off, too pale, too sickly. His smile stretched too far, teeth jagged. And his eyes didn't blink. They shuddered, like camera lenses opening and closing. He tilted his head at me, and when he laughed, the sound cracked like a wet record. His jaw dislocated with each burst, swinging loosely as though unhinged. I couldn't move. Behind him, Patrick waddled out, but his body lagged like bad frame rate. His mouth opened wide enough to split his face in half, though no sound came out, only bubbles spilling upward, vanishing before they broke the painted sky. And then Squidward. He stepped from his Easter Island house, clarinet dangling at his side. His eyes were baggy, more human than cartoon, and they locked directly onto mine. You shouldn't have come here, he said. It wasn't Squidward's voice. It was too close to my ear, like he was whispering from inside my head. I stumbled back, but the houses didn't stay still. The Krusty Krab in the distance seemed to breathe, its walls rising and falling with something alive inside. The chum bucket door pulsed like a heartbeat. Everywhere I looked, Bikini Bottom was twitching, moving, not as scenery, but as something aware. I shouted, "What is this?" SpongeBob's laugh tore through the air again. Broken. Wet. He walked toward me, each step jerking forward in stutters like bad stop motion. His arm bent the wrong way, joints popping out before snapping back into place. "You clicked play," he said, though his lips didn't move. The voice came from the ground, the sky, from inside my chest. "You let us in." I turned to run, but the sand shifted beneath me like quicksand. My legs sank deeper with each step. Static hissed louder, and the jellyfish above started moving again, but they weren't floating anymore. They were diving, swarming, their stingers pixelated and sharp. I covered my head, shouting for help, and that's when I felt it. A hand. Spongy, wet, cold, press against my back. I spun around. SpongeBob was inches from me. His face distorted, pixels bleeding at the edges. His laugh rattled through the static, each note wrong. His jaw dropped farther, until it dangled at his chest, and he leaned close enough that I could smell something rotten seeping out of him. "Want to know a secret?" he gurgled. I tried to push him away, but my hand sank into him like wet bread. His form rippled, reforming instantly. He leaned closer, his shuddering eyes locking onto mine. And then he whispered, soft, clear, undeniable, "My home address." My real home address. I froze, just before everything collapsed into black. I heard Squidward again, his voice sharper. Angrier now. "You shouldn't have come here." The static roared, swallowing everything. And then I blacked out. I woke up on the floor of my apartment, cheek pressed to the carpet. At least I thought it was my apartment. The first thing that hit me wasn't the pain in my skull or the aftertaste of static in my mouth. It was the smell. The air carried a faint tang of salt water and something metallic like a corroded dock. When I sat up, the room tilted. My couch was in the wrong place, angled diagonally toward the corner. The bookshelf I'd had since college, the one that took 2 people to move, was now on the opposite wall. My framed photos hung at odd heights, some crooked, some missing. I staggered over to my desk. My laptop screen glowed. The file, the cursed episode, was gone. In its place was a looping image of a cartoon ocean, the surface pixelating and smoothing over, like a living screensaver. My phone buzzed on the counter, notifications, but when I opened my camera roll, every photo I'd taken with my friend, the one who'd watched the episode with me, was gone. Entire albums were empty. In their place were blank gray boxes labeled Untitled. I scrolled frantically. Vacation pictures gone. Group shots gone. The couch we'd assembled together in the background of one shot, still there, but the space beside me was empty. I tried calling his number again. This time it didn't even ring. My phone gave a dull click and the screen flashed. "This contact does not exist." On the muted TV across the room, SpongeBob was playing. Or at least it looked like an episode. The colors were bright again. Kids laughing in the background. Normal Nickelodeon stuff. But as I stared, the scene shifted. SpongeBob stopped mid-run, turned to face the screen, and his pupils dilated until they filled the frame. The laugh track cut out. He looked directly at me. I lunged for the remote, but the screen flickered before I could press anything. A text appeared in yellow. I dropped the remote. It clattered on the floor, echoing louder than it should have. My neighbors were out in the hall when I cracked the door open. The same couple who'd complained about my late-night typing. "Hey," I started, "have you seen my roommate?" They blinked at me like I'd spoken a different language. "You live alone," the woman said. Her voice was flat. The man beside her gave me a polite smile, but his eyes didn't move, like painted-on cartoon features. I shut the door fast. Back at my desk, the laptop chimed. New notification. Memory sync complete. A video window popped open on its own. It was footage of my living room, but not from my cameras. The angle was wrong, taken from somewhere near the ceiling where no device existed. And in the corner of the frame, half hidden in shadow, stood SpongeBob. Still, watching. I slammed the lid shut. The audio didn't stop. His voice, higher now, syrupy, poured from my smart speaker on the shelf. Check your recordings. I spun around. If SpongeBob ever looks at you instead of the camera, it whispered. You've already been chosen. The speaker light blinked off. I backed into the kitchen, breathing hard, gripping the edge of the counter. Everything around me looked normal again. The couch. The photos, well, the ones that were left. Even the TV was playing some normal commercial now, but I couldn't shake it. The sense that the world had been scraped like a hard drive and rewritten over the old version, and I was the only one who remembered. I shut my eyes, but the glow of the TV screen burned through my lids. It wasn't finished with me. I don't know how long it's been since that night. The days blur together now. Sometimes everything feels normal. Sunlight through the blinds, coffee brewing, reruns of SpongeBob humming in the background like harmless white noise. But every so often I catch it, a flicker in the corner of the screen, a too long pause in SpongeBob's laugh, a single frame that doesn't belong, and every time, I wonder if it's just me, or if the file is leaking into places it shouldn't. That's the thing about this episode. It isn't lost media. Lost media gets forgotten. This one, it waits, it burrows. It rewrites until you can't tell where the cartoon ends and your own life begins. I've seen posts, maybe you have too, people talking about SpongeBob episodes they swear they remember but can't find anywhere. Scenes where characters break the fourth wall, where SpongeBob stares into the camera for just a second too long. Maybe those people saw what I saw. Maybe they clicked, and maybe after this video, you'll start seeing it too. Don't think you're safe just because you're not watching my screen right now. This episode, it knows where to go. It knows who to find. Maybe it'll show up in your recommendations, mislabeled, buried at the bottom of some random playlist. Maybe it'll arrive in your inbox as an attachment you didn't ask for. Maybe it's already cached in your browser history, waiting for you to open the wrong tab. Here's the part I can't shake. I don't think it just wants to be watched. I think it wants to spread. So I'm leaving you with this. Call it a warning. Call it a dare. If you've ever noticed a SpongeBob episode that felt off, share it in the comments. Tell me, tell everyone. Because if we keep quiet, it keeps winning. And if by some chance you find a file you don't recognize, one that shouldn't exist, don't open it. Don't press play. Or maybe you should. Because if you do, then maybe it'll leave me alone. If you see a SpongeBob file you don't recognize, don't watch it. Or maybe do. Because I need the next viewer.